Glad you got it. You make life a whole heck of a lot better. All right, so we went through all of our PowerPoint presentations, and great job to everyone for following through on that. Any questions about, we did a semi-pop quiz on Monday. Today is Wednesday. And questions?
Just a question about the PowerPoint again. Did you still want us to turn that in? I haven't.
Yes.
You updated
Submitted it. I did the Populi thing. I don't know what the heck is wrong with it. If it doesn't let you submit it, just email it to me.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I don't know. Some of you emailed it to me on Friday. And that's great. I did get those. If you have not submitted it, go ahead and submit it to me. Other questions? All right. See if I can get the screens to work today. We are going into chapter 11, so this next, oh yes.
Sorry, is your email the new
I can't hear you.
Is your email the same as the new
Yes,
Okay.
Sandra Stubbs at New Hope. Yes. What would I need to do? What? Yes, I'm smarter than I think I am. That's awesome. All right. So we are moving into chapter 11, and this is going to be a chapter 11 and chapter 12 mix. And that doesn't look like the right slides, does it? Chapter 11 should be you have your book. What's the title of chapter 11?
What drives us? Hunger, sex, friendship, and achievements.
Okay, so I gave you the right. Let me just make sure I am at the right place here. Chapter 11. And they may not be working anyway, so I'm not wasting my time. All right, so I'm just going to have you go with the handouts that you have in front of you instead of trying to figure this thing out this morning. I have to conserve my brain juices on what's important. All right, so you have handouts. I need glasses. And we're just going to run through some of the definitions in chapter 11, what drives us: hunger, sex, friendship, and achievement. Before I go there, and you've all marked your calendar for the week of the 8th through the 15th, that we will have no in-class. We will not be in-class present here, but you will still be responsible for the items that's in your syllabus. So I will be available by email. You can email me. You can call me if you like. I'd be out of the city, out of the state, but I'll still be accessible. So during that week, you'll be responsible for what is in your syllabus. I'm not adding anything more to that. The exam that's there, the comprehensive exam, we will postpone that to the week that I'm back so that we can do some review and stuff like that. So I'm not going to have you do that just yet. All right, any questions about that?
The 15th, you're out on that day as well.
Yes, that's a Monday. I will actually be flying back in town on Monday, so I will not be here on Monday. So you should have plenty of time to catch up if you're behind. to figure out what you need to do to get your life together. All right.
Think a little bit more.
To GYL, get your life. All right. George, you know what that means. All right. GYL. All right, so let's move forward. What drives us? Hunger, sex, friendship, and achievement. So just an overview, and then I'll dive into some other definitions here. So, preview, motivation. Definition is a need or a desire that energizes and directs behavior. It's hard to do anything when you're not motivated to do it. Under the influence of Darwin's evolutionary theory, the popular view was that instincts control behavior. Drive reduction theory maintains that physiological needs create psychological drives that seek to restore internal stability. We'll talk a little bit about that, or what we call homeostasis, which is an internal balance with what's going on outside and inside. In addition, some motivated behaviors increase arousal, and we are pulled by external incentives. According to Maslow, some motives are more compelling than others. We'll look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs during this study on chapter 11. Hunger seems to originate from changes in glucose and insulin levels that are monitored by areas deep within the hypothalamus. And you should have a picture of a brain that tells you what that is, as well as changes in the levels of appetite hormones such as how do you say this? Ghrelin? I'll write it down because I maybe mispronounced it.
Whoa. That's crazy.
All right. To control weight, the body adjusts its basal metabolic rate. Body chemistry and environmental factors together influence taste preferences. This is just an overview of what we'll talk about. In studying obesity, psychologists have found that a number of physiological factors make it difficult to lose weight permanently. Those who wish to diet should set realistic goals. Sounds like you need some smart goals. Minimize exposure to food cues, exercise, and make a lifelong change in eating patterns, a lifestyle change, if you will. Like hunger, sexual motivation depends on the interplay of internal and external stimuli. In non-human animals, hormones help stimulate sexual activity. In humans, they influence sexual behavior more loosely. One's sexual orientation seems neither willfully chosen nor willfully changed. Research links sexual orientation to biological factors. The need to belong is a major influence in motivating human behavior. Social bonds boosted our ancestors' survival rates. We experience our need to belong when feeling the gloom of loneliness or the joy of love, and when seeking social acceptance. People who excel are often self-disciplined individuals with strong achievement or strong motivations to achieve. All right, so that's just an overview of what we're going to be delving into today. So, basic motivational concepts. All right, so I told you the definition of motivation. I'll tell it to you again. Motivation is a need or a desire that energizes behavior and directs it toward a goal. A need or a desire that gives energy to behavior and gives you direction toward a goal. The perspectives useful for studying motivated behavior include, and this is where your handouts pick up, instinct, evolutionary perspective, drive reduction theory, arousal theory, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Under Darwin's influence, early theorists viewed behavior as being controlled by instincts. I feel a certain way. Instincts, an internal desire. Complex behaviors that are rigidly patterned throughout a species and are unlearned. When it became clear that people were naming, not explaining, various behaviors by calling them instincts, this approach fell into disfavor. The idea that genes predispose species typical behavior is still influential in evolutionary psychology. So how do you, or should you, reduce certain drives? All right, the drive reduction theory. That proposes that physiological needs create aroused psychological states, so you got the physicality and the psychology, that drives us to reduce or satisfy certain needs. The aim of drive reduction is internal stability or homeostasis. Homeostasis is that balance. It's the tendency to maintain a balance or a constant internal state, the regulation of any aspect of body chemistry. Let's see. Furthermore, we are not only pushed by internal drives, but we're also pulled by external motivators, incentives. When there is both a need, for example, hunger, and an incentive, like the smell of a food, freshly baked bread, we feel a strong drive to go have a piece of that bread. Arousal theory states that rather than reducing physiological need or minimizing tension, some motivated behaviors increase arousal. Curiosity-driven behaviors, for example, suggest that too little or too much stimulation can motivate people to seek an optimum level of arousal. Two early 20th century psychologists studied the relationship of arousal to performance and identified the Yerkes-Dodson law. So let's see. The Yerkes-Dodson law suggests that moderate arousal would lead to optimal performance. So arousal theory on page 2, humans are motivated to engage in behavior that either increase or decrease arousal. High arousal levels motivate agreement in behaviors that will lower these levels. And there's pictures of young monkeys there and a child. Their drive to explore maintains an optimum level of arousal and is one of several motives that do not feel any immediate physiological need. And so Abraham Maslow did a pyramid, and recall the hierarchy of needs. He expresses the idea that until certain needs are satisfied, some motives are more compelling than others. So at the base of the hierarchy are physiological needs, such as food and water. Physiological needs are to satisfy hunger and thirst. Only if these are met are we more prompt to meet our need for safety, and then to meet the unique human need to give and receive love, to belong or be accepted, and to enjoy self-esteem. Beyond this lies the need to actualize one's full potential. Near the end of his life, Maslow suggested that some people reach a level of what we call self-transcendence, in which we strive for meaning and purpose that is beyond the self, that is transpersonal. So looking at this hierarchy of needs, Maslow viewed human motives as a pyramid. So at the base, we see these physiological needs. If somebody is severely hungry, severely thirsty, it's hard for them to self-actualize or see themselves in the midst of other things because they're hungry. For example, if you're going out and you are, let's just use ministry-wise, if you're going out and you're ministering to a hungry homeless person, and you're preaching, and their stomach is growling, how much do you think they're retaining from what you're saying? Nothing, because they've got some physiological needs that need to be met before they can actually adhere to what you're saying. For a few years ago, we were down, we were over in, what's this park? I can't think of the name. We were in a park and we were ministering to some campers, and we had hot soup on a Saturday morning. We were taking hot soup out, and they were in containers, and we were giving this guy some hot, I call him Mr. Propane because that's just how I remember him. And so we were giving him some hot soup, and he was standing there and he was eating the soup. And he told us that, well, you can't starve in Lane County. There's so many places to get food. I don't really need food, and you guys are coming to preach to me. What I really need is some propane because I'm trying to get to my so-and-so's house to do blah, blah, blah. And it's cold along the way, and my camper runs by propane. And so one of the ministers says, well, we're going to gather together, and we're going to pray that God sends you some propane. And so he puts the soup down, and he says, so why we got to pray about that? You guys drove up here in 3 cars. Why come one of you just can't take me down to the gas station and get me some propane, right? And so until we could get what we wanted across to him, we had to meet some immediate needs for him. We had to help him with some physiological things going on. We give him food, feed the thirst, and now there's some other things that he needs before he's even able to hear. So now while he's captive in a car going to a gas station, he's more ready to hear about a gospel message because now he knows that some of these other needs are being met. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, safety. The need to feel that the world is organized and predictable. The need to feel safe. We're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Safe, secure, and stable. Belongingness and love needs. Need to love and to be loved. So we have a need to, yes?
I was just, I really like this hierarchy.
Yes.
I've studied it for a long time. But it kind of like, in a way, kind of conflicts with my Christian beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So.
How so?
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I said how so?
How so?
Yeah. Where's the conflict?
The conflict is because we're talking about scientific, research and data versus spiritual and physical.
Mm-hmm.
So I always believed that Maslow was correct with all those different things because we talk about the basics of how we live and what we first thing you need to do, be able to do as a human being is to be safe.
Sure.
So if you're not safe, you're not, so, but then there's like, well, God cover me with your wings.
Uh-huh.
So where's your faith if you're believing that if I'm not safe? But then I remember you and Pastor said, sometimes you just need to do what's safe.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of where I get conflicted because I don't want to be too spiritual, but then I don't want to be, but I want to apply practicality to the hierarchy. But I really like his theory, and I try to talk to people about it so they can understand it.
Sure. And you're talking about biological needs, right? And so if God is keeping me safe and I'm asking for God to keep me safe and I'm living up under a bridge, then what happens to safety? You know, how does God show that he's keeping you safe? Right? And so there may be intermittent signs of safety. There may be someone come along and say, hey, do you know the mission is here? Can I give you a ride there? There may be someone saying, hey, I see that you're out here. Would you like to stay at my place? There may be intermittent places of safety, right? And so, but this is a biological need, a physical need that we all yearn for that safety. If I didn't yearn for that safety, I wouldn't know to ask God to be safe. Right?
Right.
Because I just walk and be like John the Baptist and put on my camel's hair and just be like eat some locusts and wild honey and just says, oh, God keeps me safe. But in that element, I learned safety because he has proven his safety to me in this environment.
Okay.
Right? Does that make sense? Makes sense? So there's some biological needs that we all have, that we all strive to. I don't think they supersede the spiritual needs at all. So belongingness and love needs. And so these are the needs that God gave us, right? And so he gives us what to desire. And so and also, you can find it in the Bible, but it says first natural, then spiritual, right? So first I need some natural things. And so if I have some natural things going on in my life and God can't meet them, like, okay, well, God, I don't feel loved. Right. So how can you experience God's love unless I come and show you love? Because we become his arms, his feet, his legs, right? And so he has you act with people who are loving, with people who do kind things. And you walk away and go, wow, why are they being so nice to me? And God just whispers and said, that's me showing you love. And so we are his hands, his feet, his legs, right? It's not walking around here and, then you become weird. You become so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good. Because God needs a body. He uses you. He's grooming you to be used by him to meet some of these needs. All right, so belonging and love. Esteem. Need for self-esteem, achievement, competence, independence, a need for recognition and respect from others. I have a need to give outside of myself. I have a need that when I pursue something, when I'm going to college right now, I have a need that I finish. I have a need that I don't start multiple things in my life and not see any of them done. That becomes a need. I have a need to finish what I start, right? Go back to Genesis in the days of creation. What happened in the first day? What was said after the first day of creation? Anybody know Genesis? What happened in the first day?
He created the earth.
And
the water.
What did he say about it?
It was good.
It is good. It's not finished, but it is
Good.
It's the progression, right? This is good. I have been productive in this day. What I have done is good. Now, I'm not finished, and I will rise up tomorrow to complete a work in progress.
Okay.
But today, the satisfaction is, I've done today's work. It is good. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, somebody can take that later preaching. All right. Self-actualization needs to live up for the fullest and unique potential. Self-transcendence needs to find meaning and identity beyond self. Now I feel like I have gotten to a place where I'm looking beyond myself for meaning. So that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All right, the physiology of hunger. Describe the physiological factors that produce hunger. All right, humans automatically regulate caloric intake through a homeostatic system to prevent energy deficits and maintain stable body weight. So stomach contractions, blood sugar glucose regulations, appetite hormones, set point, basal metabolic rate. Although the stomach pains contribute to hunger, variations in body chemistry are more important. Increases in the hormone insulin diminished blood glucose levels, partly by converting it to stored fat. We do not consciously feel this change in blood chemistry. Rather, our body's internal state is monitored by areas deep in the hypothalamus. For example, the articulate nucleus, which regulates, and I'll spell that for you. Which regulates the body's weight, and it influences our feelings of hunger and fullness. One task of the hypothalamus is to monitor levels of the appetite hormones such as ghrelin, which is this word here, which is secreted by an empty stomach. Other appetite hormones include leptin, PYY, and orexin. Some researchers have abandoned the idea that the body has a precise set point, a biologically fixed tendency to maintain an optimum weight, preferring the term settling point to indicate an environmentally and biologically influenced level at which weight settles in response to caloric input and expenditure. Human body regulates weight through the control of food intake, energy output, and basal metabolic rate, the body's resting rate of energy expenditures. Right, that's the process of physiological hunger. Glucose, this is in your handouts. Glucose is the form of sugar that circulates in the blood and provides the major source of energy for body tissues. Triggers feeling of hunger when low. All right, discuss cultural and situational factors that influence hunger. Part of knowing when to eat is our memory of our last meal. As time passes, we anticipating eating again and feeling hungry. Although some taste preferences are genetic, for example, sweet and salty taste, conditioning and culture also affects our taste. For example, Bedouins enjoy eating the eye of a camel, nasty, which is most North Americans would find repulsive. Most North Americans also shun the eating of dog, rat, and horse meat, all of which are prized elsewhere. A taste may be conditioned when people given high salted foods develop a liking for excess salt, or when people have been sickened by food they develop an aversion to eating it. If something has made you sick in the past, you're going to develop an aversion to eating it.
Yes.
We also tend to avoid unfamiliar food, a neophobia, which was adaptive for our ancestors. We can eat more when eating with others. Through social facilitation, people can actually convince you and taste this, it tastes like chicken, taste this. And encourage you to expand your food horizon. In addition, the size of food portions, called unit bases, and even the bowls, plates, and eating utensils affect how much we eat. Food variety also stimulates eating. If you're trying to curb how much you eat, try using a smaller plate. All right, obesity and weight control.
Sandra,
Yes.
it says that Westerners like rotted bodily fluid of ungluate. What is that?
Google it.
Top of page seven.
It's a,
What slide are you on?
well, it's in the square. And
Oh,
it
it's a
said
Google
the
search.
big one, or whatever, like the camel eye. And it says Westerners like rotted bodily fluid.
It's on the top of page three, on the right.
It's
The top of page, Bendoans.
Yeah,
So that's a people. That's a culture of people.
yeah, but it says.
Westerners, I don't know what an ungluate is.
Does anybody know what that is?
Are you looking it up?
I don't have anything.
I'm Googling it.
Rotted
Fine.
bodily fluid.
I think it's cheese.
Makes sense.
What is it?
He says he thinks
Cheese.
it's cheese,
Oh.
He thinks
oh
it's
my
cheese.
gosh.
which has been fermented.
Oh, so so that's like cow or goat rotted something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. They're trying to be funny, I think.
It makes sense. That is pretty nasty.
Yes, it does make sense though.
I got usually as like a hooped mammal.
It's an animal.
A hooped animal.
The Bedouins are.
Ungulates are members of a diverse group of primarily large mammals.
Rotted milk, I guess.
So it's just basically like animal.
Horses, rhinoceros, even-toed, cattle, pigs, giraffes, camels, deers, and hippopotamus.
Thank
Those are all
you.
zoo animals.
Yeah, good question. Good question. Sound like zoo animals, right? And so, well, I didn't think until we were in Africa, I didn't think chickens ate rats. And we saw chicken gobble up a rat.
I know, it
And
was-
so that ruined my chicken experience in Africa. You forget about me eating the chicken. And so, and sitting amongst villagers, we're sitting around a dining table, not really a dining table. We were sitting outside and they made a table. And we were sitting there eating what we thought was chicken.
Oh,
and they were
no.
talking about how good the chicken is and how tasty it is. Oh, this is good, and chewing on the bone and throwing the bones of the chicken to the other chicklets that was eating the bones of the cannibalism, eating the chicken bones. And one of our missionaries that went with us says, "Oh, you guys know this isn't chicken, this is rooster." And it's like, what? And yeah, I watched them pluck them and cook them, and they just stopped talking. Let us enjoy the meal until when it became rooster, all of a sudden the taste of the chicken changed, and people were like, "I'm not hungry anymore."
Wait, what's the difference?
What's the difference between a rooster and a chicken?
The roosters are really hard, rougher to eat.
They're tough.
Tougher.
Yeah.
A male chicken.
Yeah.
Oh.
Chicken's melting in your mouth.
Gotcha.
Well, depends on who cooked it. All right. Depends on what it ate before you ate it. All right. Discuss the factors that predispose some people to become and remain obese. All right. Obesity can be socially toxic by affecting both how you're treated and how you feel about yourself. Obesity has been associated with lower psychological well-being, especially among women, and increased depression. Obese 6 to 9-year-olds are 60% more likely to suffer from bullying. And obesity has physical health risk. Yet few overweight people win the battle of the bulge. Fat is an ideal form of stored energy. It is a high-calorie fuel reserve that can carry the body through periods when food is scarce. In fact, in most developing societies today, obesity signals affluence or social status. However, the tendency to eat energy-rich fat and sugar becomes dysfunctional in a world of easily accessible food. Combined with a lack of exercise, the abundance of high-caloric food has led to higher rates of obesity, which raises the risk of illness and shortens life expectancy. According to the World Health Organization, an overweight person has a body mass index, which is a BMI, of 25 or more. Someone obese has a BMI of 30 or more. Although genes influence body weight, they do not determine it. People differ in their resting metabolic rates, and once someone gains fat tissue, less energy is needed to maintain that tissue than is needed to maintain other tissue. Unquestionably, environmental factors such as sleep loss, social influence, often eating high-calorie foods, and living a sedentary lifestyle also matters. Those who wish to diet should begin only if they feel motivated and self-disciplined. They should minimize exposure to food cues, boost energy expenditures through exercise, eat healthy foods spaced throughout the day, beware of binging, make a lifelong change in eating patterns, and connect with support groups that has your same motivation in mind. All right, sexual motivation. Why do people have sex? Introducing sexual motivations. Why do we kiss? Sex is a part of life. For all but the tiny fraction of unconsidered asexual, dating and mating become a high priority from puberty on. So the physiology of sex. Describe how hormones influence human sexual motivation. The sex hormones direct physical development for male and female sex characteristics and, especially in non-human animals, activate sexual behavior through hormones. Although testosterone is present in both sexes, males have a higher level of hormones. The female hormones, the estrogen, such as estradiol, peak during ovulation. In humans, the hormones influence sexual behaviors more loosely, especially once sufficient hormones levels are present. In later life, as sex hormones decline, the frequency of sexual fantasies and intercourse also decline. Describe the human sexual response cycle and explain how sexual dysfunctions and paraphilias differ. All right, let's see. The human sexual response cycle normally follows a pattern of excitement, plateau, orgasm, which seems to involve similar feelings and brain activity in males and females, and resolution followed in males by what's called a refractory period, during which renewed arousals and orgasms are not possible. Sexual dysfunctions are problems that consistently impair sexual arousal and functioning. Premature ejaculation and female orgasmic disorders can often be treated by therapy. See somebody. Erectile disorder is routinely treated by taking medicine. Paraphiliacs involve sexual arousal from fantasies, behaviors, and urges involving non-human objects. The suffering of self or others are non-consenting persons. Explain how sexually transmitted infections can be prevented. Unprotected sex has also led to increased rates of sexually transmitted infection, STIs. Teenage girls, because of their less mature biological development and lower levels of protective antibodies, seem especially vulnerable to STIs. Attempts to protect teens through comprehensive sexual education programs include a greater emphasis on teen abstinence. Just say no. Condoms also offer limited protection against certain skin-to-skin STIs, such as herpes. They do reduce other risks, such as HIV, the virus also known as AIDS. All right. The psychology of sex. And let's see, oh, we got about 3 minutes. All right. Describe how external and imaged stimuli contribute to sexual arousal. External stimuli such as sexually explicit materials can trigger arousal in both men and women. Although the brain is activated, they differ somewhat. Sexually coerced materials tend to increase viewers' acceptance of violence, such as rape toward women. Images of sexually attractive men and women may lead people to devalue their own partners in relationships. Our imaginations also influence self-motivation. Wide-awake people become sexually aroused both by memories of prior sexual activities and by fantasies. About 95% of both men and women say that they have sexual fantasies. Fantasizing about sex does not indicate a sexual problem or a dissatisfaction. If anything, sexual active people have more fantasies. Discuss the factors that influence teenagers' sexual behavior and use of contraceptives. All right. Although physical maturation fosters a sexual, that's physical maturity, fosters sexual dimensions to adolescence, emergent identity, sexual expressions vary greatly with time and culture. Compared to European teens, American teens have a higher pregnancy rate. Go figure. One reason for this high rate is minimum communication about birth control, as many teenagers are uncomfortable discussing contraceptives with either parents or partners. Guilt related to sexual activity sometimes result in lack of planned birth control. Teens with high rather than average intelligence more often delay sex. Smarter people don't do it, huh? Religious engagement, father presence, and participation in service learning programs are also predictors of sexual restraints. When people are involved in external programs that teach them information about safe sex, then they're more apt to take care of their bodies. All right, sex and human values. Discuss whether scientific research or sexual motivation is value-free. Although research on sexual motivation does not attempt to define the personal meaning of sex in our lives, sex research and education are not value-free. Researchers' value should be stated openly, enabling us to debate them and reflect on our own values. Sex at its human best is life uniting and love renewing. All right, so we have one more section of your handouts, which is the need to belong. And we will pick that up on Friday. Any questions, comments? It's a drive-by on sex education. It's not my specialty. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I didn't know it was going to be that much work.
It was a user error. I was not.
George, I wasn't going to say anything.
I was not functioning.
Thank you, Dr. Sutton.
Bye-bye. Good to see you.